So, what brings the famous Mark Twain to my parlor?
General, a reason for my visit. I hear you've agreed to write your memoirs for the Century magazine.
They've made me an offer.
And what royalty have they promised you?
10%.
General, they are treating you as if you were a private in an army nobody ever heard of. That may make you a better offer.
But you're too late, Clemens. Now I've committed to Century as publisher. And I can't go back on my word.
Let me publish your memoirs. I promise it'll leave your family well off and the nation richer for your story.
In 1884, Ulysses S. Grant, Civil War general and two-term president of the United States, was now faced with poverty. And Sam Clemens, better known as Mark Twain, arrived at his home to see if he could help Grant by having him write his memoirs and leave a lasting legacy of how he saw the war and how he saw one of the most pivotal moments in American history. So eventually Grant did go with Twain's offer to make money for his family to save them from poverty.
But during the summer before he started writing, he bites into a peach, and he says that somehow something stung him from the peach in his throat. He can't figure out what it is. He sees a doctor, and at that point, they realize that it's cancer and that they can't operate. So he realizes that it's fatal.
What is to be my fate? Will I have to lay awake again, making it a study how to get a breath? It is about as much as I could stand to go through another night.
Grant wrote the memoirs under horrific conditions. He said that every time he drank a glass of water, it was like drinking a glass of molten lead. This was a truly heroic effort of Grant in agonizing pain, writing the memoirs, and he literally willed himself to stay alive.
And it's the final battle of his life, the battle to outrace his terminal cancer in order to finish his memoirs and rescue his family from bankruptcy.
But as everything else in his life, he did not let it defeat him. In the end, he would prevail and he would finish the book.
These volumes are dedicated to the American soldier and sailor. U.S. Grant, 1885.
He dies 3 days after writing the last page. And Twain realizes at once that what Grant has written is a monument in American literature.
My family is American and has been for generations in all its branches.
This memoir is hugely important and hugely powerful. It earns over $500,000 for Julia, which of course in today's money would be much more. It's very successful and people read it everywhere. I think something people tend to forget now is that Grant, at his death, was arguably the most famous American in the world.
The response to his death was amazing. The national funeral, which took place in New York City that day, began with bells ringing all over the country, north and south. It was just a national outpouring of grief for him.
In 1900, Theodore Roosevelt suggested that Grant, Lincoln, and Washington loomed as the three great heroes of American history. So even as late as the turn of the century, he's part of this heroic firmament. And then in the decades that follow, that diminishes rapidly.
What happened was that the history of the war came to be written by a lot of pro-Southern historians who exercise a powerful sway. It's often called the lost cause.
The lost cause narrative is really an effort of the South to say, How did we sacrifice so much for a cause so bad as slavery? So they changed the narrative. No, it was about states' rights and independence. And so that narrative has become the predominant narrative. And I think part of that gets buried in there is the role of Grant.
There were 3 separate attacks on his legacy. Grant is known by many as the butcher. Grant is known as the drunk. Grant is known as the corrupt.
Everything else gets stripped away, and you've got the guy that won the Civil War, and he was an alcoholic and a failed president.
And the Lost Cause casts Grant as the villain and Lee as the hero. So once the memory of that generation that venerated him passed on, he was forgotten.
And so Confederates lost the Civil War, but they certainly won the war of myth. And Grant was on the wrong side of that myth.
Shall I read one to you? This one's from a Confederate soldier. Yours? Dear General Grant, I hope you will allow one who, when a boy, laid down his arms at Appomattox and pledged allegiance to the Union, to express his
warmest sympathy for you and your suffering. I have watched your movements from the hour you gave me my horse and sword and told me to go home and assist in making a crop. I have been proud to see the nation do you honor. And now, dear General, in the hour of your pain, I weep that so brave, so magnanimous a soul must suffer as you do.
There's something like really beautiful and American in his whole story. He just comes from nothing.
From a hard scrabble background, who's had a lot of hard times and failures in his life, who rises to the highest level of power and becomes the greatest general of his time.
Against all odds, against incredible obstacles, he became the winning general of the Civil War.
He was the commander of the victorious army that led to the emancipation of 4 million people.
Grant is the unheroic hero of our greatest national epic, the Civil War and Reconstruction.
He was committed to making America fully just, fully equal.
Grant was the first civil rights president.
It's as improbable a rise as any other figure in American history.
Indomitable will.
Dogged determination.
Moral vision.
He's a fighter.
It's truly an American story of not only patriotism to the nation, but for the values, who we are and who we aspire to be.
One of my superstitions has always been, when I started to go anywhere or to do anything, never to turn back or stop until the thing intended was accomplished.